Our story starts off with two guys running from a xenomorph, and as the xenomorph closes in on them, the xenomorph grabs one of the guys and violently mutilates him. But as it turns out, these aren't just normal humans, these are vampires. So one of the vampires proceeds to grab the xenomorph and try to retaliate by biting the creature. But unfortunately, what the vamp doesn't realize is the xenomorph's blood is actually acidic. So as it bites the xenomorph, the blood melts the vampire's face. When we catch up with Vampirella, she just got a ride out to a facility on Mars as she's joining a crew of humans that are investigating some kind of alien anomaly. As the group descends deeper into the facility, they find these vampires that appear to be encased in something. Nevertheless, Vampirella senses something to be off. Vampirella proceeds to break through the vampire, only to discover hundreds of thousands of eggs that appear to be xenomorph eggs. As the crew proceed to investigate the area, some of the eggs hatch, and the group is attacked by facehuggers, even Vampirella, and most of the group is subsequently incapacitated. Now, after the group was incapacitated by the facehuggers, eventually most of the facehuggers just fell off and the group managed to regain consciousness. But as the group is going over what just occurred as they were incapacitated, the group notices something is strange as they keep having these chest pains and they keep coughing. Next thing you know, xenomorphs start bursting out of their chests, with Vampirella's xenomorph being different as she is a vampire. As the xenomorphs run away, the crew lays on the floor dead, with the only living one being Vampirella. Now one crewmate named Lars finds Vampirella and he helps her up, and he lets Vampirella feed on him in order to close the gaping hole in her chest. So as Vampirella and Lars are trying to make their way out of the facility, the command center that sanctioned the mission sends in a SWAT team as they think Vampirella is feeding on the team. As the SWAT team locates Vampirella and Lars, Vampirella is trying to warn them about how much danger they're in, but the SWAT team doesn't listen and they end up getting ambushed by one of the xenomorphs. In the midst of all the chaos, Vampirella manages to sprout wings and grab Lars and fly to another location. As Vampirella and Lars make their way through the facility, they eventually enter a laboratory where they encounter what looks like a big-ass vat of blood, but as they're observing the vat, a xenomorph bursts through the vat of blood and proceeds to try and attack the group. But Vampirella manages to fight off the xenomorph long enough for the group to escape. Unfortunately, as they're running away, they run into two more xenomorphs, but as they retreat, they manage to kill one of them by getting it caught in the door. Now, as the xenomorph's blood spills, it manages to spill onto a vampire coffin, and because the blood is acidic, it ends up waking up the vampire. And as all this is going on, two of the xenomorphs manage to smash through the door, and Vampirella does manage to sprout wings in order to escape, but as she gets through the hole in the roof, one of the xenomorphs scratches one of her wings off and forces her to the ground. So Vampirella and Lars proceed to climb the rest of the way, but as they're running through the facility trying to escape, they end up running into another xenomorph, but this xenomorph seems to be different from the rest, as this is the xenomorph that burst out of Vampirella's chest, and as a result, he has a vampiristic mutation. And as all this is going on, the crew end up getting confronted by the vampire that was awakened by the xenomorph blood, and this vampire seems to be rather thirsty, but luckily for Lars and Vampirella, this vampire is actually kind of friendly and proceeds to help the group escape. Now the vampire lady is telling Vampirella and Lars how this facility came to be, but unfortunately, as she's giving Vampirella and Lars the history of the station, they get attacked by the vampire xenomorph, and the vampire xenomorph manages to impale Lars, and unfortunately there's not much Vampirella and the vampire can do about this, so they're simply forced to make a tactical retreat. Eventually, Vampirella and the vampire chick catch back up with all the humans, and Vampirella is trying to urge the humans to stand down, but the humans are hearing none of that. Now, the ancient vampire chick just wants to tear the humans apart, but luckily, she doesn't have to worry about that because the vampire xenomorph beats her to it. So the vampire xenomorph proceeds to rip apart all the soldiers, and as all this is going on, the group gets third-partied by a bunch of facehuggers, but this time Vampirella is prepared, and she proceeds to make short work of the facehuggers. Now, as the group is retreating, they eventually manage to find some space shuttles so they can evacuate the facility, but as they're evacuating into outer space, the vampire xenomorph simply sprouts wings and starts flying after them. As the vampire xenomorph closes in on them, Vampirella and the ancient vampire know the vampire xenomorph is way too strong, so at this point they're kind of out of options. But the ancient vampire decides it's her time to go, so she takes her bat form and she decides to keep the xenomorph busy in time for the group to deliver an explosive payload and subsequently kill them both. Our story ends with Vampirella trying to comfort Lars' wife as Lars is no more, but at the very least, they were able to handle the xenomorph threat. The end.